Good morning, watchers. Welcome to Brother Sal's Sunday Gathering at the Storehouse, our weekly commentary on world events. We first started in 1996 and have become more relevant ever since. Today, posting 2 shows per week to our YouTube channels, BroSal and Philadelphia Church. For 20 years, we have integrated the historical landscape that unfolds daily with the prophetic analysis anticipated by eschatology. We bring you non-traditional insights and uncensored discussion of issues purposely ignored by media of all kinds. Join us now for the only discussion of its kind. And joining me again this week is my son, Tony. Welcome, Tony. What do you have for us?
Hi, Dad. Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show. It's a very interesting week from my perspective in what's going on in the world. And I think the more that I study the eschatological view, the more I see what we're watching is this prelude to this time of trouble as never seen. But it also appears it could be some time away. I believe we're in the wars and rumors of wars period that was described in the Gospels by Jesus when he told them, but don't be alarmed. These things must happen. Them being turned over to be persecuted for his name's sake is that big thing. How does that happen in the world? And that's all predicated on Daniel's prophecies, which is why years ago after writing about Daniel and all that, Revelation, and Daniel's glasses was the idea that was established in the beginning of this show for getting an eschatological view based on the prophecy of Daniel. And what I find is, everybody thinks they're basing their eschatology on Daniel, but I don't see, it's very easy to twist all of our findings, the things we go through every week, Dad, the news, the journalism, so-called, that reveals the geopolitical scene, that they won't, at least this is the best we can do about getting what's going on out there. Nobody really knows, as I'm saying all the time. We got this truce going now in Syria that was just announced. Although I've read an article already, Dad, that said that of course there's people breaking it. There's incidents of either side not, blaming the other for not adhering to it. And so I see all this as quite a big farce. We're going to go through, I hope, one article today about the truce. But, it's not a farce in the sense that it's just that the real fighting, the issues about fighting, who's really fighting, who it is that's not fighting, who it is that's agreeing not to fight. 97 factions on the side of the rebels. This is the choice. This is really what we're supporting over there. Of course, ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra, anyone linked with these guys, the fighting's still going on. So all they're proposing is that the fighting between the Syrian government of Bashar al-Assad and this rebel, the moderate rebels that we keep asking Russia to stop killing, that we give our guns to try and take down Assad. And nobody seems to point out that all of this cost and, was Assad so bad 5 years ago? Was it really that bad? And now these rebels, these 97 factions, that we're bringing to the table under some umbrella called a, moderate rebel contingency, right? Who are we backing in that race? Does it? You mean we don't? It just doesn't matter. People that we trust because we're giving them guns to go after Assad, and of course we've vetted them, so we know that once they take over the government of Syria, they're not gonna be the kind of people that slaughter their citizens like Assad. I mean, it's, where's the journalism to expose all the deeper layers of this thing? Funny how all of the impetus are all, at least at first discovery, highly questionable incidents. The Assad gassing the people with chlorine or chemical, bombing his own people with chemicals. And then the international people go in and say, well, no, it looks like the rebels were the ones doing that, meaning these people that we're funding, one of these 97 factions that might take over the government, we're hoping through peaceful solutions, huh, Dad? Is one of these people that really were the ones that were using the chemical weapons. But all of that was sold twice to us as the West as the reason that Assad just had to go, just like weapons of mass destruction. Saddam Hussein's got to go. The Taliban, I guess, still has to go after 15 years. We can get rid of the entire Iraqi, armed the whole country. We can destroy a country. But we can't get those darn Taliban out of the caves where they rule Afghanistan from. And so, that war rages on in Afghanistan, and Iraq is destroyed over lies. And then 9/11, of course, I bring it up a lot, Dad, but every time I think of all this stuff, it keeps coming back in my mind as this foundational image. Well, now, wait a minute, this whole thing, am I to believe it's based on the fact that a bunch of Arabs hijacked airplanes and started this whole extremist war by knocking down 3 buildings in New York and putting a hole in the Pentagon? That's such a, that's like a cartoon. It's such a falsehood. So, what part of this reality is reality? Oh, ceasefire, but that's all real. ISIS, but that's all real. Come on, none of this is real. Going all the way back to 9/11, the war on Libya wasn't real, the war on Iraq wasn't real, the war on Afghanistan wasn't real. We've been tracking it all this time. The rise of ISIS wasn't real. So what is the basis? What are we looking for in these headlines, Dad? And so anyway, I got thinking that maybe we might just want to review for a minute that this whole Daniel's glasses and not try and twist the world into a few lines of prophecy, but, let the prophecy live in the headlines that's going on and what we're really looking for. And so, from chapter 7, you got the 4 beasts, and the 4th is the terrible one that's got the 10 horns on it, and takes us all the way into that time of the end when it fights against the saints and is defeated, right? Verse 23 from chapter 7 in Daniel. Stick with me. I'm going to get to the news, Dad, because I see war in the news, but not immediately. I see that the world is being ignited instead of calmed. And what Daniel says in chapter 7 at 23 is, thus he said to me, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon the earth, which shall be greater than all the kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down. and break it in pieces. Sounds like the secret societies that we talk about, right? Their control, that kind of control. What came out of the Roman Empire. And as for the 10 horns out of this kingdom, they are 10 kings that shall arise, and another king shall arise after them, and he shall be greater than the first, and he shall defeat 3 kings. Now this is the thing that we've been interpreting all these years, Dad, is, Iraq and Libya and Syria. Originally we thought it was Iran and Iraq. And Syria or Libya? Syria, I think. But come 2000, when all these people met to decide, we're going to war, making peace with Israel, they all decided on this peace deal except for Iraq and Libya and Syria. And the little horn of Jordan rose up to be sort of the one to find a way to make it happen, on account of all sorts of things. One, that he's been friends with Israel from the very beginning. He's the one that shares the Holy Mount with them and has the final status talk delegation as the Hashemite king. So he was the natural one at that moment in the history of this watch, that of all these kings meeting over there, that is what we were watching for, because we weren't watching for Roman kings as in Rome, Italy. We were watching for Roman kings as in Roman Empire, the one that lasted almost 300 years longer, based up there in Turkey and Constantinople, that ruled that land, that these kings we're talking about are from. And so they meet, and 3 of them say, no, we're not doing it. We're not going along. And we're watching for this Daniel prophecy is why I'm bringing it up, Dad. This is where it comes from, Daniel 7. This one little horn that he considers, that becomes the whole basis of what we call a chapter in Daniel, is this 4th beast, these 10 horns, and this one little horn. And it's, at that time, after defeating 3 kings, he'll speak great words against the Most High, and shall plot against the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand for times, and half a time, which we've always, we learned and have continued the interpretation that means 3.5 years. And if it does, as I've been pointing out all, for some time now anyway, why do we talk about the end times, the tribulation, as being 7 years instead of 3.5 years, which is what it, what it really is. The time that the Jews are given into the hands of this, and we call this Antichrist, again, false deliverer. Why do we call this person Antichrist? It doesn't really say that. This little horn is a king that rises up and defeats 3. So anyway, I'll leave it there now. This is something to cross over into our Sunday show and in our Bible teaching, but I want to touch on the fact that this whole program of yours was originally a eschatological view, tying to what's going on in the world to this particular prophecy of Daniel. So we're looking for someone that's going to fulfill this. Defeat 3, cause 3 kings to be defeated. His power will be mighty, it says, but not by his own power. In the next chapter we call 8. And the part that's pertinent right now, I think, to me, Dad, to mention before I get into today's analyzation of the news, is that in Daniel 9, where we have the 70 weeks prophecy, the end of it goes, after 62 times 7 weeks, Messiah will be slain, and the city shall be without a ruler, and the holy city shall be destroyed together with the coming king. So it doesn't say coming Messiah, it says the holy city shall be destroyed together with the coming king. Now you could say that happened, but of course, with our eschatological view of all the things that have to happen that he laid out, 70 weeks are determined to seal up vision and anoint the most holy place. And well, they haven't done all that. The temple was destroyed and they got scattered as per other prophecy. So the part that's so interesting that brings in the 7-year tribulation that people refer to is this one simple line that's the very end of what we call Daniel chapter 9. Let me read it together with the 26th verse that I was just reading, that after 62 times 7 weeks, Messiah will be slain, and the city shall be without a ruler, and the holy city shall be destroyed together with the coming king, and the end thereof shall be a mass exile. And at the end of the war, desolations are determined. Desolations. At the end of this coming king. Desolations. Everything destroyed. Desolate. No more Jerusalem. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 7 weeks. Who's the he? Right? As Scott always taught us, Dad, must be the he, the coming king. And the holy city should be destroyed together with the coming king, and the end thereof should be a mass exile, and at the end of the war desolations are determined, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 7 weeks. And half of 7 weeks, then he shall cause the sacrifice and gift offering to cease, and upon the horns of the altar the abominations of desolation. So here we have both the 7-year period as the last week of years, and in the middle that he causes the sacrifice and gift offerings to cease, which gives us the character of this person we're looking for, which, as we were talking about in this past week's discussion, someone had mentioned about Turkey being the deadly head, the head that was wounded to death from Revelation's beast that's been brought back, the Ottoman Empire. And look at what Turkey's doing. And they're in our news again this week. Excuse me. And I've said often, Dad, I think Turkey is the Gog of prophecy. And as that whoever I heard that mentioned it, the only time I've ever heard it said, sounds the most intelligent. Magog is the leader, the chief of Meshach and Tubal. Magog is the king of Gog. And so at this point, that's what Turkey looks like to me. And they also seem to be the one that comes in from the north at the end to attack this this little horn that rises up, that they're not the same thing. So anyway, we've been discussing that in the Sunday show, Dad, but I'm trying to lay that eschatological foundation that we're looking for. We've been looking all along for this Arab king, which looks like in the modern world would be the Hashemite king of Jordan, who seeks to get back. And look how Saudi Arabia is the one who's in the crosshairs on both sides, Dad. Whether you're Turkey trying to reestablish the Ottoman Empire Caliphate, or you're the Hashemite king trying to get the Caliphate you were promised 100 years ago, Saudi Arabia is the one that got the money and the funding to start Wahhabism 100 years ago and take Mecca and Medina from the Hashemites instead. Excuse me. And now they're the ones that are in the crosshairs. And the way the Quranic scriptures seem to have it is that it's at the time of the death of one of their kings, which has just happened, that there'll be this great turmoil and a fight for the throne, a fight for power amongst the princes of Arabia, which is also going on at this time in our world, that you see even through our plastic news. Is why I thought it was important I keep wanting to be different than just rambling on through the news without relating it to the eschatological context. And then also, as we do, Dad, to me, layering in the context of the predicted world wars through Albert Pike, if that's where they came from. We know for sure that the Third World War came as a prediction from 1958 in William Guy Harvey's book. So, in the same way, I guess it would be interesting. It is interesting to me to point out about Daniel, Dad, that the timetable in Daniel about the Messiah being cut off, and then the people of the prince that shall come will destroy the city. Daniel's so accurate with the prediction of, since he was a captive in Babylon, is what it claims, to claim that Media and Persia, that the angel told him, that it would be the kings of Media and Persia, was depicted in his prophecy. That's who would follow Babylon, and then Grecia would follow that, and the first horn on the goat was the first king of Grecia, and the four horns that rise up to take its place, but not its power. Right? Those things are just too accurate. So Daniel must have been written long afterward. Well, he couldn't have been written in the first century after Christ, could he? I mean, Christ tells the Jews, when you see the things spoken of by the prophet Daniel, run for the hills, right? So you'd think Daniel, what we call Daniel, was at least written pre-Jesus, and yet in Daniel 9 it says that after 62 times 7 weeks, Messiah will be cut off, but not for himself. And that this whole prediction of the king that'll come and the city being destroyed and this 7-year covenant in the middle of it breaking it, right? So that's all in the future, even if, however you want to play out the rest of it, we're still dealing with this particular prophecy of the 69 weeks and then Messiah will be cut off, which is hard to argue, which is why, Dad, like the missing link theory, it doesn't get argued. No one talks about it. There's a reason Sir Isaac Newton found validity in Daniel as a place to look for this end time eschatological landscape to be playing out. And it's because of, I think, such a vision. How can you deny this? Okay, so with that, the first thing, let me say what probably I would imagine is all over the news, because it's on an ABC News from a few days ago, how 51 companies are legally supplying ISIS with bomb-making material, Dad. It's in the phone. It's in the phones we use. And I don't know how ISIS figured it out in a cave, but of course they're all, funny how their leaders all come from, guerrilla warriors that we've trained. And I guess we train these guys how to make bombs out of phones, right? And they go back to Afghanistan or the caves they're hiding out in, so that our sophisticated equipment that we spend billions on for, 2 generations now, we can't locate them. We can't track the phones. And the article said that within a month, they can turn the material from the phones into bombs. So I say this is just a way, because I tell you that I keep seeing more time. I know everybody's hoping for the rapture, and I'm just, I haven't forgot about it for those few that listen to the Bible study who might be listening today, I'm still working on my notes. I'm just working on them today, as a matter of fact, for some of the evidence of what we call a rapture and what we might expect or not expect based on our traditional view or not. And so I haven't forgot about that, but I still think whatever's coming's a ways away, because the way that the world is taking shape into this end time vision of a leader that has to rise up. And I don't see how it could be anything less than this Caliphate that was promised 100 years ago. Who else? What other players you got? Who else has been banked on all these years? How did they keep the Arabs in line 100 years ago to set them up for this great war, if that's indeed what was going on, Dad? From the Albert Pike version, you'd have to say that's what was going on, because Albert Pike would have written that in the end of the 19th century, and it was 20 years later or so that the First World War results in the Hashemites being used. And while they're being used, as we talked about last week, their territory, the Arab territory that the Hashemite king was trying to get his people all together under and away from Ottoman control, he was being double-crossed even while he was, his people were putting their lives on the line, thinking the British, were going to keep their deal with them. So, what other players you got? Then the British go fund the Wahhabism and fund these guys to take away half of the Hashemites' kingdoms to sort of weaken them, right, Dad? That's the way I see it. So that the people that are going to come in there, that France is going to, France and England are dividing up Iraq and Syria and Lebanon now to do what, and Palestine, to do what they want with it. And they can't have too much Arab revolt, can they? So they need the Arabs fighting on their own front. So they fund Wahhabism and divide and conquer. I mean, I don't know. You show me your history, right? You go ahead and read your history book. I'm telling you, standing way back in 2016 and looking into the past, it just seems to roll on through that way. When you see the way communism was funded, when you see the way at the same time the Hashemites were stabbed in the back, and at the same time the French and the English divided up what? Iraq and Syria, the places that are all at war today. This is just a coincidence. That's the history we come out of. So anyway, I'm tying the eschatological view in, layering that now into a view that seems quite reasonable to me, which is this predictive world war, tying that into a geopolitical view provided by people like Professor Quigley that tell us that there is in fact a group of people rich enough to infiltrate every nation, to pull the strings of China, yes, Russia, yes, Korea, yes, no problem. Brazil, with the spare change and that slipped down into their sock. So with that in mind, we're being told that 51 companies are legally supplying ISIS with bomb-making material. And I didn't read any article about stopping them. It's just, oh, darn it, it's getting through the net. People aren't enforcing the codes. You're not supposed to let this stuff slip through to people like extremists known as terrorist organizations, as if they buy the stuff that way. And since there's only self-watchdogs, right, like the banks, they're supposed to just be good boys, then it's all, there's very little oversight. They can't afford to watch them all, is the idea. So they have to watch themselves. So anyway. And they're not. They're just selling to whoever will buy their product. Geez, you never heard of that before in business. Anyway, so it's a nice, slippery, easy way for the plausible deny. Planes can be going down, blamed on these bombs that come from cell phone material. And it also provides the means for them to take our cell phones. It provides for having your information put on a chip that's eventually put in your hand so that it can't be taken from you or stolen or used to make a bomb. Next article, Dad. I've got here, U.S.-Russia brokered ceasefire goes into effect. Okay, I kind of led in with that, that they got this U.S. I found this almost offensive, that none of the details, except for these ridiculous things like the Syrian government and the opposition, including nearly 100 rebel groups, have said they will abide by the ceasefire despite serious skepticism about chances for success. I mean, it just sounds like a silly little game to me. Who are, there's no journalism as far as that I've seen on who we're just being told this like sheep, or worse, mushrooms, right, Dad? You know what they say about mushrooms, kept in the dark and fed on bleep. So, right, who are these 100 rebel groups? What makes them qualified to even speak? Who's the number one guy? Why are we voting for him? What's he done in the past for the Syrian people? What are the issues at stake here? Why are we treating this like it's some game show, some reality TV show? Because it is. My proposition to you all that might still be listening to me, because it is a game show, and what they want you to know is the broker, all this I say is distraction. It doesn't really do anything. And the picture on the cover, this article I saw, everybody knows about this by now, but it was from February 26th out of the AP. And the picture on the cover, again, shows these, I suppose bombed out apartment buildings. They used to be. It's funny, there's no paint left. I guess over there they don't build them and paint them. And it always looks the same. Crumpled steel and the cement with the reinforced steel all crumpled down like it was just bombed. And yet there's no, I don't know, where's the street? Where's the cars? Where's the evidence that there used to be life there? When was this? How long ago were people living there? You mean the bombs not only destroyed the outer part of the building, but turned the inside of the building into a ghost? There's not a shred of life left around it. So I don't know when this was, Dad. When this place was bombed. I mean, they've been fighting over there for a long time. There's caves that have been being bombed since they invented bombs that still show the sign. I mean, I was over in Budapest. There's buildings that still got the bullet holes from the 50s, from World War II, and then the revolution in the 50s after they rebuilt after World War II. So what's that tell me? I can show you buildings that look like they've been bombed yesterday, but they weren't. They were bombed 60 years ago. Anyway, I still have yet to see anything that looks like real wars that have gone on. So I say it's all still wag the dog. That's the feeling I still get. Okay, China seriously concerned by Australian defense document. Okay, Dad? I mean, because Australia, a country with, 20 million people who I didn't know had a lot of, enemies, like China. Anyway, Australia announced a 20-year plan Thursday to bolster its naval strength with more submarines and warships as part of a military buildup it said was needed to maintain peace in the region. So, again, this article only gives me this little tit for tat about that upsetting China. It's very short. I'm not sure when the peace was upset in the region. I don't know what kind of budget Australian taxpayers deem reasonable for submarines and warships in their waters. Who are they fighting against? What's the League of Nations done in 100 years, Dad? its charter, and that's what the United Nations, as I understand, took over the same charter to eliminate conflict and conflicts resolved with wars and weapons, right? That was the whole idea. Why is everybody being sold submarines and warships? Okay, so I'm still on this kick because it's like no one's ever provided me an answer, and I'm not just going to let it disappear like the missing link theory and Daniel being authentic. Nobody talks about it because, it's too easy to get to the truth. So, who funded Russia's buildup? Why are they so powerful when they were so broke 20 years ago? Who's behind that? Where'd they get the money? Right? And they're coming into that's why, they're in the picture again. I'm trying to lay this broader fabric this week, Dad, because I see that the broader thing is war. And the idea that in a peace process that's been going on my whole life, peace in the Middle East, the Palestinians and the Jews, the peace process, the roadmap to peace, right? The whole UN, the peace movement, the peace this and peace that. And for some reason, even the most broke countries in the world like Yemen, North Korea, they've got these military budgets to buy these, weapons that cost in the tens of millions, like airplanes for one. What did we read? 49 million a couple of weeks ago for one aircraft. And so, naturally, we need 40 of them. Come on, we got to beef up our security in the region. So China and Australia, isn't that interesting? Australia's got a 20-year plan, not to decrease the amount of submarines and warships because of the peace process that's ongoing in the region. This is what I'm trying to get to, Dad, that the real picture of seeing where are we at in the world is we're on the road to world war like never before, a time of trouble like never before, because we keep smiling and nodding as our Western powers keep funding the buildup of weapons to everybody, and we act like it's for security's sake. But it's obviously not. It's for some sort of gigantic time of trouble as never before in the eschatological view, world war in Albert Pike's view, and maybe the culling of humanity in the view of the geopolitics of Professor Quigley, right? But either way, this is what we're watching, people. The other side of Daniel, Dad, this 7-year covenant, isn't that what I've been saying for years now? That's what I'm watching for. This guy's got to come up with a 7-year plan that he breaks. That's what's going to come in the world. And what it seems like is it's got to come from this caliphate that has to reform in the world. That's what that's what I'm watching for on that front. All these other things, they're just BS plastic news. They're really going on, but they're not what's really going on, what the headline says. They're just what I read beneath it all, Dad, is why, the buildup. Why is everybody giving each other weapons right now? Why are hostilities not being dealt with by the UN? Why are the front pages and the top level argument on every news station every day the disarming of nations, the sort of showing all nations and a certain level of arms and what we're all aiming for in these ongoing, constant getting together in these summits that they love to do to talk about how next year Australia's, they don't need so much stuff. The UN's going to jump in and take care of, who's Australia fighting with? Indonesia? How much stuff do they have? Why? Who's selling them stuff? They're kind of poor. Australia's kind of rich. Why does Australia have to build more weapons is my first question. Oh, because China's doing this. Well, China's part of the whole Security Council, aren't they? How come we're all not talking about how to reduce threats in our areas by supplying less weapons? See, no one talks about it, Dad, because it's such an easy, you put that on the table and it becomes this red herring. Yeah, why aren't we? Like the lobbying thing. Yeah, why do we keep letting lobbyists run the government? For whoever's behind the scenes. We just don't talk. We don't talk about it. We just do. And that results in a world where we just keep selling weapons. And we talk about how how Australia is gaining a footing for peace because they're on a 20-year plan to build more, weapons of mass destruction. I say that's because there's some deeper thing going on in the world, people, that's going to eventually end at those weapons being used on each other for a reason. That's what you should be reading into the headlines. What reason? Who? Who's going to use what on who and for what reason? And when you figure that out, I guess either choose up sides ideologically or get out of the way, is sort of my take on it. I'm not on either side in this one. If there is a rapture, I'd like to. Who wouldn't want to go in that? So that's why that's a no-brainer. Whether there is one or not is the deeper question, or who's in it and all that. But I'm just saying, if there isn't one, I don't feel like it's God fighting the ungodly. Jesus seems to come at the end with an angel with a sickle. I don't see anywhere in the scripture where believers are told, okay, it's time, take up your sword, let's go get them. Nowhere. It seems that God does the saving at the end. It seems the king of the north and the king of the east come and kill the little horn king. So I don't want to be part of that battle. Or any of these other wars and rumors of wars. I don't want to be whoever Australia's fighting with. I don't want to be part of that fight, wherever those submarines are pointing their weapons. And so the world's getting smaller and smaller for me. I don't know where Mexico stands on that, but I'm looking for even a more remote part of Mexico to be, because that's what I see. That's when I read between the lines. I see wars and rumors of wars. I see ISIS with the capability now that you can't stop them. All the cell phones they've been buying for the last 5 years are all being turned into bombs. And anybody in any cell anywhere in Europe, America, or anywhere else can get on a plane and blow it up. Can blow up anything they want: a bus, a plane, shopping mall, supermarket, bridge. Anything. Okay. Putin says foreign enemies seek to disrupt foreign elections. So this is where I read this, Dad, as sowing the seeds for that future giant conflict, right? Just like China, Australia, just like North Korea, USA, just like Iran and Israel, just like Russia and USA, right? All these larger conflicts that have to play out at some point with all these weapons. So, everybody can't be sort of always close to negotiating a settlement, can they? I thought we did that after World War II. I thought that was the whole point. That now we can divide up the world how we want and we can keep everybody in check. I thought this whole switch to the United Nations was about. So, no, it was about developing the Cold War as a means to continue the arms escalation toward this Third World War, it would seem, if you're going to read it the way I'm reading it, to have a reason for it. Who's your enemy now, right? The secret enemy. And that's never stopped. Terrorism's always been there, and even the word terrorism. It's just never been given a face. Islamic extremism, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. See, now we got the red, the new red enemy lurking in every. It's the same game plan, you guys. So anyway, Russia's foreign enemies seek to disrupt Russian elections. And so he's warning, the Kremlin's warning them, stay out of our business. That is why everyone should know that we will work to persistently protect our interest in accordance with the law, is what they're saying out of the Kremlin. So it's just one more thing, one more hot point, one more place where the peace process is, where all this influence, winning all these wars, having all these great men lead us in freedom and democracy, has led to a world where, Russia and America can't agree to divide up the world and just stop threatening to have to shoot each other with nuclear weapons. No, Dad, we're gonna find out that, in fact, we're both still spending the time to point out to each other that, in fact, we will shoot each other with nuclear weapons. Pakistan, this is an article from Saturday from the AFP. Pakistan clashes. Air raids leave 34 militants, 5 troops dead. Now, I think this is very important, Dad, because Pakistan is a client state of America, like Saudi Arabia or Jordan. They don't do anything against American interests. And who did they attack over there but Islamic militants? Which to me, 15 Taliban and Pakistani Air Force jets pounded militants' hideouts in the northwestern tribal belt, killing at least 15 Taliban insurgents, including 6 Uzbeks. So, see, now to me, Dad, 15 Taliban insurgents hiding out, and why is this so noteworthy? Isn't this just ongoing stuff? Is this, because again, the article gives me no journalistic understanding of the history here. Like that this is something that's been ongoing. Pakistan's been after these people. This is what these Taliban have done, right? And so it sounds more like the strikes were carried out in the Mysore area of the Dada Kahale region in North Waziristan, which is considered a stronghold for Tehreek-i-Taliban Pakistan militants. So, considered a stronghold. So again, Dad, it has all the makings to me of the same thing I've been seeing in the ISIS mercenary army. It's trying to get the strongholds of the enemy, because there's a new sheriff coming to town. There's a new deal coming to the area. There's certain places that are naturally going to be difficult. So is this just come up on the chain of things to do to go kill these people? Did they just show themselves? We'll never know. It's made news. I say it's very important because the Pakistan-India thing, I didn't read in Daniel there, Dad, but there's an allusion to this king that goes after people of many gods, which of course is the Hindus, and they have their fight ongoing with India, right? And you talking nuclear weapons over there, talking huge, and I think that's why they have not many, just enough to kill each other. Right, Dad? I mean, are we going to look at it as something that was predicted 100 years ago, and this is all being played out, that it's been set up, that agents of the Illuminati have been pulling strings, that these bankers have infiltrated all parts of the world, and therefore they know who's got weapons and who doesn't? They could have sent people in to kill people that are developing weapons, kill scientists, kill leaders, and fund rebel groups to stop that type of development. You don't see Bolivia with a weapon, do you? South Americans didn't get no weapons. Why? I think because they were kept being the farmers of the world. But you didn't see them get power with all that farming. That should have made South America and Central America like the rulers of the world, or one of the big chips in the game, shouldn't it? They grow all the food, keeps the world alive. So we went in there and killed all their leaders and just gave the control of the land and the food to these multinational corporations that grow the food and keep the countries poor. These are among the poorest countries, funny enough. They have all the food, their people have nothing. See? But they're not in constant war. They don't spend all their money on military. That's why I like Mexico. Their military looks like what ours looked like in the 40s, if that. They're running around in old helmets with their old vehicles, and it's like a national guard. Their military is to keep their own land safe from insurgencies from within. But they're not going off they don't got no enemies. See? How come the whole world's not kept like that? I say it's on purpose. Because India and Pakistan have to destroy each other. That area of the world's been slated for destruction. Because those Arabs, there's too many of them. They dealt with them 100 years ago by using them, dividing them, until they can be sufficiently slaughtered. Enough to, be controlled in the new world order, if that's the appropriate term, as it is to so many people. So anyway, the Pakistan thing to me is a big deal, Dad. That's going to be a real hot spot in the end. And so again, there's just nowhere that doesn't have, again, Pakistan too, not a super rich country, but full of American weaponry, right? NATO weaponry. So now this is an important one. I'm just rolling through these in no particular order, Dad, as I sort of saved them up onto my screen. So I'm just clicking through the tabs if they seem to not be connected by anything. This one's from the 26th, Friday, from the AP by Robert Burns. Nuke test. The missile is the message, the Pentagon hopes. And so this is an article which also I find very stimulating, that we sent one of our Minuteman 3 nuclear missiles out of its bunker in California, headed for a little island south of Hawaii in the South Pacific without its nuclear payload, thank God. We were just testing the missile, not the nuke like North Korea recently did, which just really upsets me because, again, I feel the people pull the strings. Nobody's really worried about that. It's all everybody. It's the actor coming onto stage like in Seinfeld. It's like Kramer coming onto stage with a big, loud and obnoxious entry so that you notice him. Poor North Korea, but yeah, they're threatening the world. And this article even makes mention of the fact, amid growing worry about North Korea's pursuit of nuclear weapons capable of reaching U.S. soil. So yeah, you wouldn't just go into UN type of sanctions, UN type of measures. And, Iran's not even allowed to have a missile when they have a clear aggression with one of, an American ally in the region. Whereas North Korea, who has far less people, far less money, far less sort of potential threat than Iran, why don't we take the same sort of strong stance with North Korea? Because they're, again, it's all being played. They're a minor player being played into their part, but they're out rattling their saber, and when the time of trouble comes like never before, or this world war that's predicted perhaps by Albert Pike, it's just one more enemy ready to go at it. But we have, this is what I found so interesting, Dad. The Air Force operates 450 Minuteman missiles, 150 at each of 3 missile fields in Wyoming, Montana, and North Dakota. A few times a year, one missile is pulled out from its silo, trucked to Vandenberg, minus its nuclear warhead for a test launch. And this, of course, just to show everybody, we got them and we'll use them. And it also says that even though they were built in the 70s, with the idea of having a 10-year shelf life, that's why we keep testing them, and they still work fantastic, and they're still the basis of sort of our nuclear deterrent. 450 of these things. The missile test, dubbed Glory Trip 218, was the second this month and the latest in a series designed to confirm the reliability of the Cold War era missile and all its components. The Minuteman III, first deployed in 1970, has long exceeded its original 10-year lifespan. It is so old that vital parts are no longer in production. Okay, so we got 450 of these, 45-year-old nuclear missiles, on top of all our modern stuff, that we know about, on top of all our modern stuff, space stuff, whatever, energy weapons, perhaps, that we don't know about. And we're worried about North Korea, right? I mean, really, if you had this, would you be worried about North Korea, or would you have an ambassador going to North Korea to ask him if if he cares to be in power tomorrow? So anyway, I find it just that you have to read deeper into it. Why haven't they used all this armament to disarm the world? That's the bigger question. So anyway, but we're shooting off our nukes to show they still work, and arguing that it's to show everybody, hey, now be careful. Excuse me. From our watch of the also the migrant issue, now it is not going away. From Reuters on Saturday, Germany's Schwab urges European answer on migrant crisis as skepticism grows. And the thing about this is, they're putting them all in Greece, is what's becoming really bad. That's what's putting the pressure now on Europe. Turkey's already been threatening Europe. Hey, man, I'm the one with 2.5 million, and I'll start pushing them into Europe if you don't, because I see that, and if you want to put it in the view we started with, Dad, the eschatological view, he's making a play for that Ottoman Empire, which I say he's being told, oh yeah, you're our man. Yeah, that's why. I guess I should wait to talk about this in the next article. I'm setting up for that. But in this one, what we've got is, Europe, it's being pointed to that, okay, Europe's got this problem. People like, Austria's now, sending people away saying, hey, we'll take 80 a day. That's our quota. Everybody else got to go. It's bottlenecking up Greece, which of course is, Dad, I think there's a reason Greece is getting the short end of the stick in all this. If you recall, there's a Nostradamus prophecy about Greece being devastated in a famine and a synthetic dust for 9 months that results in death and sickness and famine. So I don't think it's a coincidence for me in that deeper picture that it's Greece where all this backup is happening, and the country that's been going through all these problems with the World Bank that they forced into bankruptcy through their fraudulent loans, and then now of putting the people through these austerity measures and, this life that has become this beautiful ancient place of Greece. What do they coincidentally have? A bunch of ancient Christianity, real Orthodox Christianity. Just saying. In that deeper picture, you figure that into it if you want. But anyway, so the problem with the migrant crisis is still going on and putting pressure on Europe, and I say that's all going to, hasn't reached its culmination by any means yet. It's all still sowing the seeds and keeping it on everybody's front page. But when the bombs start going off, when ISIS starts pulling the triggers here and there, then everybody can really start getting at each other's throats and getting, ready to use their weapons to go do what they have to do against whoever they blame for sending those people. So here's where I want to talk about Turkey, Dad, from Friday the 26th, AFP article, Turkey's Erdogan to embark on major trip to Africa. See? What did I ask recently? I don't remember whether it was in a comment or one of these shows about the Little Horn King and Egypt being taken over and all the riches, and the Ethiopians and Libyans being in submission or being in alliance to this. In the eschatological view, that's one of the things we're watching for. Maybe it's what I asked of someone who had asked a question on our show, Dad, but I'm saying, could it be Turkey, the Ottoman Empire? They know that prophecy, perhaps, or they know those players. Ethiopia, Libya, Egypt. This is part of this Caliphate. This is part of the kingdom that they want to eventually rule. So it's really interesting because Erdogan's been he's been making friends with the Catholics over in Central America, South America. Now he's making a trip through Africa. So I say it plays into my view that, see, he's being told, yeah, you're the man. Yeah, you're the man. You're the man. Well, that's why we're not hearing about Jordan right now. We're not hearing anything about the king of Jordan. He's not in the news. We see him as so important as this Hashemite king, as this little horn, but where is he in the news? He's still little. He's still a little horn among big horns. Wars and rumors of wars. And so anyway, Turkey, I think, is, he's been in the news every week, because he's puffing up his chest. He thinks he's going to be the big guy. Right? But that's what's going to draw him into the war when all of a sudden old Jordan's getting the weapons and Jordan's getting the big head and he's going to be the caliph and he's going to go take the territory, and Turkey's saying, oh, no, you're not. I got the backing of perhaps NATO at that point. I don't know. Whoever he's got the backing of, because that's the final battle when he's playing his cards to be last man standing. Right? And the people are playing his string to be in the position to be last man standing. Because that's what that territory is all about. That's Gog, the Satan seat, Pergamus. If we can relate it accurately to that part of the world. Okay, I'll try and get done here, Dad. From Saturday, I thought this was fun. Iran president, top ally lead after vote for key body. So they're giving us the Iran. I find it interesting how Iran's political system's interesting to us, and how they showed in this article, which was I don't even know who, the AFP article. What I liked about it was the little graphic that showed their political system. On one side, you got these appointed people from the supreme leader, a council, expediency council of 34 members and a guardian council of 12, which essentially are the people that rule. And then you have this elected, supposedly that we say, is this crooked elected system that gets their president, assembly of experts, 88 clerics, elected every 8 years, and a parliament of 290 members elected for 4 years. A president elected for 4 years that can have no more than 2 consecutive terms. I mean, where'd I see that before, Dad? Let's see, president that gets elected for 4 years but can't be elected for more than 2 terms. That sounds, is there some exotic, crazy place that's like the Persians that do it that way? Oh yeah, America. I mean, is that just, I mean, you'd think that our arch enemy, if anything, would just not do what the English and the Americans and the Canadians and the Australians do, wouldn't they? Wouldn't their supreme leader forbid them to look just like? So I say, sorry, Dad, I'm finally convinced that, yeah, Iran's strings are pulled like every other. They're, just like America, like you used to say, they're in a position to elect the representative of their dictators as well, because that's the system that works. That's the systems the bankers have developed to keep everybody in line, whatever color the flag, whatever headdress, whatever language they're speaking. They're all using money to stay in power, and the money comes from the same people and always has. Okay, and the last article I have today is another one I find really mind-blowingly interesting. In my larger picture, Dad, of this this build-up, these wars and rumors of wars that eventually have to end in this heated battle that, you know, if the 7-year covenant was tomorrow, is somewhere like maybe 7 years. I don't know that what we're saying is the battle climaxes at the end of the 7 years, but I'm going to say that I can see it 10 years away. And so this to me is what the news really shows. You know, the deeper look is what I was trying to outline in the beginning. Who is this little horn? Who is Gog? Who's the king of the north and the east? Who's the 3 horns that have to be uprooted? Where's the 7-year covenant? You know, all of that we've been looking at for all these years, and I think still we have a lot of the pieces in place. The Hashemite king and the way that fits now with the way he's trying to put his caliphate back together. That, you know, all seems to be plausible. I don't know anybody else's explanation that fits the eschatological view. That's why I started with that. Everybody can take these headlines and squeeze them into some particular scripture taken out of context about Rome and the 4th kingdom and the 10 kings of Rome and the 7 hills of Rome and the Pope and the false prophet, and use words like prophet or Messiah to mean something they don't, or mean something out of the context of the scripture. So that's what I've been seeing this week, Dad, trying to rescue a little of that for my own sake. And now this article from Saturday out of the AP, Japan to supply Philippines with military equipment. Because, of course, being part of the UN, permanent member, you know, Japan sees fit that there should be more military equipment in the world. Japan will sign an accord with the Philippines to allow Tokyo to supply military equipment to Manila, the first such Japanese defense pact in a region where both have expressed alarm over China's island building and other aggressive acts in disputed waters. So again, we have in my lifetime now suddenly this disputed waters. I don't know when they were disputed and why. You know, why does that not go straight to the UN? Why is that military buildup on both sides, and the UN isn't putting sanctions on all these people? We're not, I mean, why is everybody building weapons over this as if the solution is a military one? As far as I remember in my lifetime, and I lived in Hawaii where I got familiar with Filipinos and the Philippines a little bit, Dad. This is a very poor culture, like Central America. Poorer than Mexico. I mean, these are poor people. These are the kind of people who send their daughters off to be mail order brides to give them a chance in the world. That's how poor the Philippines are. They're a poor island nation with like one city, Manila, that's a slave nation since they were conquered, you know, during World War II or before, actually, right? So they've been a slave nation with factories putting out crap for that part of the world, having all their resources stolen. What do these poor people need with the military and why do they have to fight anybody? Why aren't they being protected by the UN over whatever resources they have that they can't afford to protect through borrowing money from the International Monetary Fund to buy very expensive weapons from the weapons manufacturers, who happen to be the same people as the International Monetary Fund, to defend themselves against who? Other people that are doing the same thing, borrowing weapons from the from the weapons manufacturers with money they borrow from the International Monetary Fund. See, that's why we're all screwed, because they also make the laws about that going on in the world. And they call it the peace process. They call it, you know, the United Nations, the NATO peace agreements, you know, all these things. They do it under those pretenses. So you can't stop them. You can't stop them from coming in and pointing out that you need to borrow money so you can buy more guns so you can stay in power, because the other guy that wants your territory is doing the same thing. He is borrowing the money to buy the guns. And we're happy to loan him the money and sell him the guns. So what are you going to do? I mean, that's Carol Quigley, Professor Quigley's world. And you show me a different world, people, please, or stop hassling me in my peaceful little neck of the woods. Anyway, Dad, that's that's what I really got this week, is that I think I'm watching this larger buildup of arms in places that don't, Australia, Philippines, Yemen, North Korea, right? Next I'm going to hear that Guatemala, has a navy. That Guatemala and Honduras are now building up their navy to ensure peace in the region. But that's how silly it sounds to me that the Philippines is getting military equipment and Australia is building submarines. I don't see that as a good thing, Dad. I see that as very scary. If not scary for us on a watch of an eschatological view, and even, I don't know, spiritual people that believe in a grander scheme to life. I think death is all a part of it. It's scary in the sense that a world that's going to send more of its children off to die that way. That's what bums me out. Instead of all of us, putting that money into a better life for everyone, right? More food, more fresh water, more shelter, and all those things that can be provided that we already know about. The development of all these alternative sources of energy and so many things, that there's an abundance of resources for everyone, an abundance of capital resources included for everyone. And instead we're on this course that, when you look at it that way, for me, Dad, when you think of what we could have, this beautiful world and the potential of our own mind and the potential of our capability to progress technologically, with the use of that mind to add, unlike the higher animals that can use the same rock maybe to beat open a shell or beat on a tree or whatever, but they don't ever improve on that rock and turn it into a chainsaw. or a laser that can do surgery on another animal. So all this incredible, ability we have, you imagine what we could do for each other, the kind of world we could have, to pretend that we have to have this world where Australia needs more subs and the Philippines needs to protect themselves and the South China Sea and China needs to, are you kidding? I say the only way to see that in reality is to realize that someone's pulling those strings. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Smart people wouldn't do that. And everybody's inherently smart, given, if they were not brainwashed into these systems. The Chinese, before we got a hold of them in the Cultural Revolution, were spiritual, deep people. So were the Arabs. Everybody was, pretty much. There were just a few, let's call them barbarians, which were so called because they had no sort of taste for a spiritual, deeper perspective of life. They just sort of wanted to live like animals, beating each other over the head, stepping on gold to get at, worthlessness, right? No appreciation for what these other cultures saw as a higher, perspective on life, love or giving or, right, contemplation, meditation, all the things the Hindus were doing, the Chinese were doing, the Arabs were doing. You had these barbarian cultures, and I don't know, were those the 10 tribes? Is that the beast that rose up in the world that's destroyed all the spirituality and deep people so that we could have a world that would just accept that we're going to call it a peace process and have the power to enforce it, and we're going to do it by giving everybody guns, even the people that can't afford them. Oh, heck, don't worry. We'll loan you money and destroy your future so that you can buy the guns today. Anyway, Dad, that seems to be the world we live in. And well, it's one that demands an explanation beyond the one they give us in the mainstream. That's unacceptable. No reasonable people would live that way, and most reasonable people just don't understand the way it really is. That's why it's like a matrix. Most people live in this matrix of information, and so the world doesn't seem like that to them. And I guess that's why I persist in adding my voice, out there, Dad, and appreciate that you have this site for me to do so that anyone that might be waking up, or that opportunity to, or if there is such a thing as a middle ground, an in between, right, where the Spirit's calling you out of that haze and illusion and brainwashing. Somewhere's got to be that land of the, where you're getting a different viewpoint, so that you can sort of shake your head and try and figure out what's, separate from that illusion and brainwashing long enough to get a perspective. I know that's what it took me. It took me several years of having the TV off and being sailing on my sailboat and just, not having any of that in my mind, to see that the world was doing something different than what I was being told it was doing every day. So anyway, Dad, I hope that because of that, I'm able to add a perspective that's helpful to people. And anyway, thanks for having me on your show. Talk to you next week.
Well, Tony, I think you're exactly right. And it was another superb analysis of this week's happenings in the news in the Middle East. And folks, I hope you enjoyed the show today. And give us a little feedback. Go to BroSal.org on YouTube, or the Philadelphian Church on YouTube, and comment. Drop us a line. Subscribe. And if you like what you're hearing and you want this to continue, drop us a frankincense offering. There's a button right up on the right-hand corner of the title to keep this ministry and the word coming to you. And for Tony, I'm Brother Sal. Till next week, we want you to have a great day in Christ. Thank you.